First of all, it's great to be here for a lot of reasons. And the first reason is this is where I began my politics as a Democrat. There's a few in the room that remember the old days of Ray Hansen. Who remembers Ray Hansen? Does any? Good. Because we all have memories of what it was like to be in a state where Democrats were winning. And I was a student up at Utah State University. Go Aggies, right? And I wanted to get involved in politics. And so Ray Hansen would come by and pick me up. And I remember he kept on talking about the Sawbuck Dinner. And we would go out and collect money. And he would tell me these great stories about how he was a labor organizer. And, you know, I really loved to hear him. And I've spent hours and hours with Ray Hansen. And I was thinking about that today. It was a lot of hard work to really have Democrats win. So I have a lot of nostalgia being here because I remember those old days. I remember the elections with Congressman McKay. I remember working hard for him. And I always thought that Weber County would never, ever be not totally Democratic. And I understand that it may be moving the other way, but we're going to change it, right? Right. Yeah. The other important thing I think that reminds me of the past. As you probably know, I've served 39 years in the military. And as I was coming up today, Heather and I were talking. And by the way, let me introduce my wife. I'll have her stand. Heather Cooke. She's the best. She should be running for governor, and I should really, and she'll be here tomorrow, and also heading up, leaves at 6 in the morning, we head up to Cache, and back to Weber. We have a team going down to Moab as we speak, and I catch a plane tomorrow morning to get down to both St. George and Cedar City. So we'll have some pretty good representation. I want to tell you, if Heather has an opportunity to talk tomorrow, you will be pleased. She is the most fantastic speaker and a great campaign mate. But as I was coming up here, I was thinking about my military career, because as we passed through Hill Air Force Base. And I love the sound of those jets and the sound of victory, especially being an Army grunt. We always want to call in for the air support because I remember I can tell you stories about calling in some Hueys, and what I really needed is nothing better than the air support. And I keep on thinking about, as a military person, you know, we have to stand and fight. We have to know our territory. We have to have the ability to meet the game plan and to move forward and hit our mission. And let me tell you, Democrats, this is an important time in history. This election coming up, we cannot rest on the past. We can't hope for the future. We got to act now. And it's a serious time for our children. It's a serious time for our state as a whole. And there's never a time in history when you allow one party or one group of people to be able to take over another group. We are so far gone as a state that if we don't bring it back into balance, you know, I say it's our fault. So to me, gear up. Stand tall. And every time you see one of those jets flying around, and know that sound of victory, know that it's the Democrats that will make the difference in this state. And your time is now to rise to the occasion. And I hope we all do. A lot of people ask me, why in the world would you run as a Democrat? Being a general, a small businessman, you could do a great job being a Republican. And I said, you don't want to know what I said. And it's amazing, as Jim DeBacchus and I went through this decision, Jim kind of convinced me that I should think about it. He said, Peter, it's your time, and somebody has to stand tall. Somebody has to, like your battles, gear up and go to war, because we have a big issue here. And I said, Jim, I'm a tired guy. I don't know if I have this. Just think about it. And then I remember having a lunch with Jim Judd and Dale Cox, and we looked at each other, and they said, I hope you're man enough to be able to take the challenge. If you know Jim Judd and Dale Cox, that's a pretty heavy challenge. And Dale and I kind of kid about how we're all going to watch the next Super Bowl in the governor's mansion, and you're all invited, by the way. At that time I was making this decision, I was up at the governor's mansion, and I felt the hubris comments that were coming from the governor. And I've known the governor and John and Governor Huntsman mostly through welcoming veterans back, or soldiers, or mobilizing soldiers. And when he got up in this meeting and said, welcome to my house, I kind of said, it's not your house. This is not your state. And when you start thinking that, you've lost the desire and the hope of the people. And that's something that I think is happening. That any of you that are running for the legislature, we need you back. We need people that care about people. And just like you're standing tall. Anybody running this election is standing tall. And that was part of this kind of decision-making process I went through. I remember sitting at a dinner table and asking my family, I said, I've been gone doing this for 39 years, almost every weekend. I had 7 states, 10,000 reservists, and we were fighting a fight. During the middle of the Iraq War, we were 51%. The Army Reserve and the National Guard was 51% of the force. And I was gone most of that time. I was up in all the different states. You know what I was doing? I'd be standing in front of a soldier, or a single mother, or father, student, and I'd walk right through that formation, and I asked them, are you ready? They would look at me straight in the eyes, say, sir, I'm good to go. I've seen mothers, single mothers, having their grandparents with their kids, saying, I signed up, I'm mobilized, I'm ready to go. I've sat there on my knees giving a flag to a mother that has lost their son. When you take a flag of the United States of America and you hand it to a mother and say, on behalf of a grateful nation, we thank you for your service. Think about it. Think about it. Now, I'm not here to defend or explain the war or wars, because they will come and go. But I am here to talk about that patriotism of this generation that stood tall. They didn't run. They could have. They didn't have an excuse. They could have. They loved their country. You know, and they weren't Tea Partiers, and they weren't people that have never served to think they're patriotic. These were people that were standing tall for their country. So as I was thinking about this, I said, you know, that's not what we all signed up for, was this kind of government where people stir up other people. There's fear. There's issues that don't make common sense. There are issues that split us between each other. As Jim DeBacco says, we're Democrats. We have a Big Ten. And I also stood tall because, as we've said, I'm a Democrat, and also I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And one thing I want to say about that is that we are a compassionate people. We don't judge other people the way this is being handled. We don't look at people the way that we're actually, I think every member should be a Democrat, actually, because that's where we are. So back to this dinner table, I said to my family, I said, are we ready to go? Because I've dragged them to so many military ceremonies. Heather said, don't do it unless you want to win. And you'll see that tomorrow. My sons and daughters said, Dad, you taught us to stand tall for our country. Why would you run from this? And my littlest daughter said, Dad, if you don't do this, you'll regret it. Tonight, while we're late, and I wish I could almost pull my phone out and play a voicemail. I listen to it quite frequently. The lady is named Sally Hill. Sally is 86 years old. And she called somehow, she figured out a way to call my home. And she says, Pete Cooke, General Cooke, you're our next governor, and I'm going to support you. Call me. Well, we get a lot of those phone calls. And Sally, so I decided that I would call, because she, in her phone message, talked about how we don't take care of our seniors and a lot of stuff. I called her, I missed her. Then she would give me, as like a second lieutenant or a young major would tell me, or a captain, she gives me a sit rep, which is a situational report, daily on what she's doing. So she would call me and she said, you know, I'm in a wheelchair. I get up every morning. I leave with copies of a newspaper article that said you were running. I've copied off 200 of them. I get on my wheelchair, I wheel into the tracks, and I ride it all the way to one end and wait till everybody gets off, and then the new crowd gets on, and then I drive it back, and I hand it one to each one. And she said they, first of all, feel sorry for me. And I don't want any kind of real classy stuff. I've written little messages over. This is our next governor. You need to vote for him. I go, wow, Sally, I've got to talk to you. Then I got Heather involved, and she said, we have to go see Sally. Well, Jim has got me on this amazing schedule. Like I said, we are just going every day, and I haven't had time to see Sally. And it sort of gets me every day. Every time I get a donation, I get a little bit in my heart and humbled by that. Every time somebody says they put up a lawn sign, I'm humbled by that. When an 86-year-old lady calls me daily and tells me she's going back and forth on tracks, I drink a Diet Coke and I head out again. But I want to tell you that the latest one was, I'm down, I think she came up to Ogden, but she said, you know, Peter, you missed a great opportunity yesterday because they opened City Creek. There was 50,000 people. And I stood in the middle on my wheelchair, and I was handing out your brochures. She said, would you get your you-know-what over here and get me 200 more? 2,000, actually, she said, as Heather corrected me. So we went and saw Sally today, and it got to be a long meeting. And I was emotional about it because the whole nursing home had come out. They didn't believe that I would come. But it reminded me of that same feeling that I have with my soldiers. We have a state, and we have people that want good government. And not just Democrats. They're Republicans. They're people that have common sense, that knows that it's time to have strong leadership. And that's why I'm running. And I can blame all of you, Pat, back to the days when we started right here. I was 20 years old, and that's about 40 some odd years ago, that I learned my politics in Weber County. Heather said to me coming up, we got to win this because there's so many people tonight on the road across this state going out to try to get our message across. It won't be easy. But this is a fine line in the history of our state. This is going to be a time on whether or not we stand tall as a state, whether we stand tall as Democrats, whether we stand tall as just people with common decency. And try not to continue this image of a backward, non-passionate, if that's a word, group of people that stir up other people to hate each other. We've got to unite. I was at the Utah Foundation the other day, and I'll conclude on this. And I said, you know, we are as a state like in the map room of the Titanic. We are being this, only way I can think is to say it is to have propaganda, that everything's okay. But it isn't. How can a state with this education, and every way you look at it, falling apart? 42nd, pupil size. It's just amazing. We villainize our teachers. We blame it on them. I said to the UEA today as I was speaking to them, it's like the war. 1% of us went to fight. 99% of the people watched. But they continue to play their golf, continue to do a lot of their different play bowl or whatever, but 1% fought. That's the same with our teachers. One of the things that also got me, and they're 1% fighting a battle for 99%, and those are our children. That's who we are. How could we turn our back on our children? I don't get it. When I came back, I was concerned about veterans. And, I'll tell you, it's a very interesting thing. It was one of the first meetings that I met Dale Cox was, he said, why don't you come out and let me show you what we're doing for our vets. And I forgot about the technical and complicated training it takes to have our technical workers meet the great obligations of our state. I was there when a veteran got on some equipment, and he was trained. He was fighting Iraq, couldn't find a job, and the unions had brought him in and started to give him a job and put those skills to work. And I had gone up and down the state and the United States also to try to find ways we could help our veterans. And everywhere I went, it was the great unions that were standing tall. They were standing tall for our vets. And I know that I'm going to be challenged during this campaign because I love the unions. They remind me of my soldiers. We fought together, and they too are standing tall. That training, that concern of getting the best pay we can for the people that work in our state is going to be important. I can speak that as a small businessman. I can speak that as a veteran. So in conclusion tonight, as you drive home, I brought an example of, let me pick this up. We're trying to get 10,000 of these out. And I asked, everybody says, why are you starting that in March? So when you ever think about getting 10,000 out, it's going to take a long time. But you put a stake. You put it in the ground. And as the military, you defend it. Be proud that you're a Democrat. Be proud of what we're doing. And be able to speak the issues. So when a neighbor sees you put this in the lawn, you can say, I am supporting a patriot, I'm supporting America, and we got to make a change. So I have a few here. Heather has some more tomorrow. So I'm going to ask everybody for 1 minute, if you wouldn't mind. I've thought about doing this, and then I know there'll be more to the program. But would you all just take one big stand and stand up for a second so I can see all these? I see a room of Democrats standing tall. I salute you. God bless America. God bless our party. Thank you.